I get comments like this very often. I wish I could improvise solos freely around the fretboard. Right now I feel stuck always playing the same things. Now there are thousands of lessons online that talk about learning the fretboard, but you only get exercises that are not in a position or in all positions. And there's a huge problem with that advice, because that alone will never get you there. I'll show you a method in this video, and it doesn't include that very famous McGoodrick exercise that I actually don't think works for this at all. What? Let's start with a look at the harsh reality so that you don't have too many illusions of 10-second fixes and hacks.
You can't handle the truth!
I suspect that you'll recognize most of the things in this next list, but never thought about why it works like that. If you want to be free to move around the neck when you're improvising, then you need to be able to improvise in any position, because being free all over the neck also means being free anywhere on the neck. I'll return to this in a bit. You also want to be able to shift position freely, and in the real world that probably means moving from one place that you know really well to another place that you know really well. Often these are scale positions, and again something I'll expand on later. You want to have a way to organize the notes in a way that makes sense for the music that you want to play. For some styles of music, this is the pentatonic scale. For other styles, it can be other scales, or even just the chord tones. This next part probably feels like I'm telling you that you're practicing the right things, and you probably are, but not all of them. You should spend time practicing scales in positions, whether it's pentatonic or major scales or something else. That really just depends on what you want to play. You can also see why it makes sense to practice scale positions next to each other in a key, because that helps you see the different areas that you have available when you play, and help you have an overview of what positions are next to each other, since that stays the same in other keys. This next part is probably tied more to jazz than to blues or rock, but it really describes how you think of the fretboard. If we take a C major 7 chord as an example, I'll see the C major scale as the available inside notes. Then the chord tones, or the arpeggio, as the important or foundational notes. But in the scale I could also focus on another subset and then put that on top of the major 7 chord, like this A minor 7 arpeggio. Or I could take a pentatonic scale that works over a C major 7, like E minor pentatonic. And that would give me a lick like this. In that way I have levels of how it relates to the chord and the music. The notes that are not in the scale are then the chromatic notes, and they're great to put to use as well. This shows you why it's nice to practice arpeggios in a scale and how to think about the notes when you're improvising. But it's all very locked in a position, and on the guitar some things are just a lot easier to play if you're not stuck with the position. This is maybe not how most people think about it, but I'm sure you'll agree that one really good reason to play something out of position is that it becomes easier to play. Here's a pentatonic lick that sounds great and sort of dreamy over an F major 7 chord. And that is a lot easier to play because it's a motivic melody using this way of playing the pentatonic scale across the neck in a repeating pattern. A similar example could be using several triads in a line. Moving along a set of strings makes both phrasing and technique a lot easier. And this is built around playing triads on the middle string set, so this exercise. As you can see, then exercises like these two are really useful for certain types of melodies. And remember that we play exercises to be able to play music, not the other way around. First, you want to build knowledge and make sure that that is what you really need when you're playing. Now, luckily, that process is a lot like earning interest on an investment, so it becomes faster and a lot less overwhelming once you get started. If there is a place in the song where you're forced to move somewhere else on the neck, then that's just a sign that you have a gap in your fretboard knowledge and something that you need to fix. Start with a song that you know and choose an easy position for that song. I think the important thing here is you really want to make sure that you know everything in that position for the entire song. Now once that all feels easy and you can play solos that sound like music, then you want to expand that, and here you want to add positions next to the one that you already have. Mainly because you then have more places to go when you solo, and you can do that without having to skip around. This is where the interest on investment parallel kind of comes into play. The more positions you add, the easier this process will be, and you will benefit from what you already learned in the positions that you already checked out, making it easier and easier. But this is mostly about using positions to get an overview that works when you play, and you need to develop some other skills as well. Some exercises are not as useful for developing the ability to move around the neck while you're playing. I kind of already hinted at this in the beginning, and Mick Goodrick's unitar exercise, where you solo on a single string, is actually one of them. To me, it's a limitation exercise that can be good for a lot of things, but it's not really that practical for learning to move freely around the neck, because the neck has 2 dimensions, and we actually rarely play things on just one string. In fact, more than 90% of the building blocks that make up your vocabulary use more than one string. I guess this is similar to how you don't only want to develop your ears hearing intervals on an app, and also want to get used to hear things in real music. I would suggest a different approach than this. And the good thing is that you can start working on this while you're still learning the positions, so you can work on it before you have the whole neck covered. There are 3 variations to this exercise that you want to explore. They say that you're working on Ladybird and have 2 positions covered. This and this. Now you want to start getting better at moving from one to the other. So start with just the C major 7 chord and come up with lines that move from one position to the next. Like this, where I'm connecting 2 arpeggios across position. Or a descending line that uses a bit of chromaticism to go from one position to the next. You can explore this on a part of the song or on the entire form, just to get used to connecting vocabulary like arpeggios and other short phrases across positions. And you especially want to pay attention if something is easier to play like that. An example could be this way of playing arpeggios in a repeating 2-string pattern. From this, you can start to do the same in time while working on playing lines that move from one position to the other, and in that way get used to how that works. And as you become more and more comfortable in several positions, you can of course expand this to moving all across the neck while soloing, like I'm doing in this F. If you want to become better at moving around the neck freely when you solo, then that's also what you should practice. Soloing while moving around the neck. So take a part of your practice time to solo and then just force yourself to move up and down the neck while you're playing phrases and try to still make it into music. It's similar to how you don't learn to play great jazz solos by only practicing scale exercises. There are skills involved that require you to actually practice playing solos. And this is true for chords as well. You don't get anywhere just practicing inversions and chord voicings. Instead, you can check out this video where I cover some of the essential exercises that help you develop the real skills that you need for comping. And luckily, these exercises are also a lot more fun and musical than inversions. Check it out. Learn jazz, make music.